Hello everyone, I hope you're keeping well during lockdown number 3. I'm here today to teach you how to set up your own academy, but not just that, also to answer a lot of these questions that are being asked in forums that people are giving a lot of misinformation for. And there seems to be a lot of misinformation about teaching out there. And sadly, this is also coming from the lack of knowledge that some trainers have themselves that are then teaching other people to set up academies for financial gain. Now, this is all very well. We're all here to work for money. None of us are a charity. But if you don't have the skills and the knowledge yourself to pass on to someone, then unfortunately, the industry is not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. Let me tell you a little bit about me. So my name is Kate. I've been in the beauty industry for over 25 years. I'm a level 4 qualified beauty therapist, and I also have my teaching, my assessors, and I'm currently actually only just now doing my IQA, but that's a bit of a long story. I have been teaching for around 18 years. I've taught privately, I've taught awarding body courses and qualifications. I've worked just for me, and I've also had a team of 14 staff as well, where we were running around 4 courses a week from a very big academy. So you can understand that I've got the experience from all sides. Now, that's not to say I'm the only person that knows this information. It really isn't. There is so many amazing educators out there with the knowledge and the experience that they can pass on to you. The problem is lying that at the moment there seems to be a hotbed of new people that have entered the industry over the last year or two, and they're trying to now tell people how to set up their own academies, but without that experience and knowledge themselves of when things can go wrong. So this course itself isn't so much about telling you just the basics of setting up your own academy. It's also there to answer some of the questions that are being misinformed on a lot of the forums. On top of that, my inbox is inundated with message after message after message of people who just don't understand the very basics around training. And this is due to the fact that so many people are giving so much information in so many different directions, and most of it isn't true. And obviously, you know, they're still quite new to the industry themselves, but when people go back and ask them for help and advice, they're unable to answer the questions that they're being asked. So I'm hoping that I will be able to answer those today in this hopefully very brief video, and by the end of it you'll understand a lot of information around teaching, what CPD qualifications are, what awarding body qualifications are, what teaching certificates there is out there for you to gain. You'll hopefully know about your insurance and everything that we can hopefully get through today. I'm going to try and get through with you guys. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to ask me. You can send a message direct to my inbox. I will always try and give you advice and help where I can. But if you've got anything that you want to ask, you can ask in the comments box below as well, and I'll also try and get through those and answer them. But hopefully you shouldn't have any questions after this, and everything should make a lot more sense. So why are we going to start to teach? This is the question that a lot of people ask. They go, I've been a beauty therapist for 30 years. I don't actually understand why I've never got into teaching, because I've got those skills to pass on. And one of the most important things about why you should teach is if you have knowledge, if you have passion, then that is what you need to take forward into your teaching. And if you cannot teach better than your last trainer or the best trainer that you've ever had, then maybe teaching isn't for you. You need to make sure that you have the knowledge to pass on to the best student and the most knowledgeable student that comes through your door, because ultimately you need to not only hold your own inside the training academy, but you also need to pass on knowledge. The thing about being a teacher or a trainer is that other people look up to you to get as much knowledge out of you as possible. And if you're unable to pass on any knowledge or skills, then actually it's maybe too soon in your career to embark on teaching. Now, as a salon owner, I realised that I was spending so many hours a week just doing clients, and even with my own staff, there wasn't a huge amount of profit in my business. And I was also spending a hell of a lot of time teaching my staff, and I was wasting a lot of money on it as well, because obviously you can imagine I was spending money on staff training. Opening a training academy became the most logical step in my career. I attended night school, I became a trainer, and at that point in time I never actually realised exactly what it was going to do to my life or where it would take me. At the time I just thought, I might go and work in a college, or I might do a bit of teaching, but I would have never imagined the amount of money and the possibilities that came with that as well. Has it been an easy ride? No. Have I made mistakes? My God, yes. I've made heaps and heaps of mistakes. And this is why I'm trying to make sure now that people are doing everything the right way. When I started out, there wasn't any internet. And that sounds a bit sort of balmy, but we didn't have internet. We couldn't log on. We didn't have forums. We didn't have the whole amount of information at our fingertips that we do today. And now actually things should be better than they ever were. And actually standards are slipping. So now's the time for me to pass on the pros and cons of what I've done in my career for you guys to learn from and then ultimately move forward. Now, whether you want to earn a small amount of income or you want to have a steadier cash flow, teaching really does provide you this. Now, you can earn more money in a day with teaching from fewer people than you can from working a client column. It's a great time to pass on those expertise and skills that you've learned over the years and perfected to other people. You'll also save money as well by training your own staff, and you can reduce the worry of quiet times of the year for the salon, because training is great in that when your salon is quiet, training is usually quite busy, and vice versa. It allows you to have a better work-life balance. You can work less hours, and actually you don't need to work nights with training. You can work a 9 to 5 or a 9 to 4 and be home by the time the children get home from school. It really allows you to take your business and income to the next level. If you are serious about being a career-minded business person, then this gives you the stepping stone to actually earn a hell of a lot of money if that's where you want to go. Now, you think maybe that contradicts what I said about being money-orientated. Of course, we are money-orientated, but that shouldn't be your only focus. But with the training, what it will lead on to is ultimately distribution and product sales and other avenues as well. I've actually travelled most of the world doing teaching. I've absolutely loved my career. I'm at the point now where I'm taking my career to another country and I'm going to embark on a whole new level over there. And again, I'm going to try and improve standards of training and standards of the industry in the country that I'm moving to. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, you really need to make sure that your foundations are in place first. And this is the absolutely crucial priority that you need to make sure that you have, because if you don't have these, then you're already going to set yourself up to fail. Ultimately, the next question is really who to teach. And this is what I get a lot of people asking. I've seen young girls who are 19, 20, 21 with the most unreal skills. And these people have actually gone on to become multimillionaires from actually teaching and from doing their treatments. And obviously bringing out brands and things like that. So age doesn't mean anything. Whether you're 20 or 40, you will be able to teach somebody your skills. But you need to really decide on who you wish to teach. Are they people that are entering the industry from scratch? Are they people who are already qualified? Are they younger people? Are you looking to teach people who are 16, 17, 18? Or are you looking to teach people who are a little bit more mature? So you really need to understand who your target market is going to be before you start to embark on a training course. So before you set up the academy, sit down and think, who are you going to deliver these courses to? What are you actually going to teach? Because by knowing this, you're going to then know who you're going to teach. If you're going to teach a waxing course, you're not going to be aiming this towards an aesthetics market. If you're looking to teach botulinum toxin injections or dermal fillers, then you're really not going to be teaching 16, 17 and 18-year-olds. So you need to look at that. You also need to know whether you're going to teach one-to-one or you're going to teach in groups. How many people do you really want to teach at a time? And do you have the space and vicinity to actually do that within your current business? That's not a problem if you don't, because like me, you can go out and travel to other people or you can rent rooms. You need to also understand whether you want to deliver awarding body qualifications or regular CPD certification courses. The difference between the two I'll go into a little bit more detail later, but really what I would always suggest to any new academies, start with your small CPD courses first, your accredited courses, get experience with teaching, get some work experience in an Ofqual backed centre, and then move over to your regulated qualifications. So that can be your long-term plan. If your long-term plan is to teach level 2, level 3, level 4 beauty, amazing. This is where we all need to be going, guys. But start with your accredited courses first, get your work experience, and then move forward and set up your regulated qualifications at a later point. There's benefits and pros and cons to do that as well, which I'll explain briefly. As I said before, what should you teach? You really need to sit this down and think about it properly. If you've only been doing something, a subject area for 3 to 4 months, guys, just knock it on the head. Really, you need about a year to 2 years experience in what you're doing to be able to pass that knowledge and skill on to other people. Remember, for some people, these skills are going to be really advanced. You might have picked it up easily, but for others, they may need to literally be handheld for the duration of their career. That's not a bad thing. We're here to teach, we're here to mentor. So the thing that you should understand is if you're looking to teach a subject that is quite straightforward, such as waxing, you're probably going to have very minimal involvement after the course has ended with that student. But when you start to teach something that's a little bit more advanced, such as microblading, micropigmentation, botulinum toxin, dermal fillers and things like that, you then have a very long-term duty of care towards your student because they're going to have ongoing questions and concerns that you're going to need to be answering. And actually you do need to be the one that's answering those questions. And sadly, a lot of trainers come on board with very little knowledge themselves with this area. They then go on to teach somebody else. They then get asked questions that they're unable to answer or situations that they're unable to deal with. And unfortunately, what ends up with these students is that they end up getting blocked by the trainer because the trainer has no way of being able to answer the question and obviously don't want to make themselves look as though they weren't sort of ready to practice. So if you are going to teach, make sure that what you are teaching, you have so much confidence and knowledge and experience in teaching, because ultimately we want to improve the industry and we want to pass on those skills quite well to other people as well. Certain treatments trend. So if you see a trending treatment at the moment, you may want to jump on board with that, and that is absolutely great. But just be aware, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because as soon as that falls out of favour, then that's all your income basically dried up. And then the other thing is, how many courses should you really be teaching? I sell manual packages of up to 20 courses, and sometimes I get people asking me for every single manual. But guys, we don't need this. As an experienced trainer myself, throughout my entire training career, I have actually really only ever concentrated on the maximum of about 10 courses. You can feel free to teach 20, 30, 40 courses if you so wish. That's perfectly up to you. But actually, don't think that you're any less of a training academy if you're only delivering 1 or 2 courses. At the end of the day, it's about the quality of the course, not how many you're delivering. And actually, you can start with 1 or 2 courses and start to build up on that. So if at the moment affordability means you can only add on 1 or 2 courses, as your students start to come through to you and then start asking for other things, you'll be able to determine what them students need and what the popularity will be for certain courses, and then you can start to offer them from there. Another question is, should you be offering online or offline courses? Now, you shouldn't be offering online courses if you don't have any experience in actually teaching offline courses. You need to understand the issues that people are going to face with normal offline face-to-face training, and this could be things such as not being able to pick up a certain skill, not understanding how needles work, and having basically poor practice in certain areas that you can only address in an offline setting. So until you've delivered a course and you know what people are going to be asking you, what their questions are going to be, what their skill set is, then really moving on to an online platform isn't the way to go until you've got that experience and you know that you're going to be able to support that student in every way possible, and that the course delivery is going to be almost as good as an offline course. But ultimately, online is really there for absolute masterclasses or upskilling people with knowledge. They shouldn't be a be all and end all to an online course. It shouldn't be the whole course delivered online. The students should have the option of blended learning, where they can actually come to you and learn the practical as well as doing all their theory online. There is a place for online learning. We're moving into the 21st century. Everything's happening on Zoom and Clubhouse and God knows what else is coming into the mix nowadays, guys. But ultimately, Online should be about upskilling and should be about CPD, and offline really should be for your more invasive procedures and things that actually need a hands-on approach. So once you've realised where you want to teach, then you're going to need to get your teaching qualification. Oh, yes, the dreaded teaching qualification. And this is one that lots of people have been basically asking online for the last year. How do I get my AET? How do I get my teaching qualification? How do I teach? And where do I start? So, with this one, really, you need to understand that not all teaching qualifications are the same. In fact, there's so many people at the moment offering a level 3 teaching qualification, which isn't actually a qualification at all. It's just a CPD accredited course, and therefore isn't actually worth anything that it's written on. It's basically not even worth the paper it's written on, guys. You need to be doing an Ofqual backed regulated qualification, and the reason for this is at some point this industry is going to go regulated. It really is, and it's not about if, it's more about when now. It's about when this is going to occur. And a CPD awarded certificate in teaching is not going to be valid for any of the awarding bodies, guys. So you really need to make sure that if you do have a teaching qualification in place, that it's Ofqual backed. These are people like VTCT, SIBTAC, TQ UK, Highfield Learning, and City and Guilds and so forth. If your certificate is not assessed by an external company, then unfortunately nobody's going to know whether you actually have the skills to teach or not. It's just one person that has actually ultimately assessed you. So in terms of that, if you are going to move forward into teaching, please make sure that the company that you go with is an Ofqual backed qualification. If it isn't, then unfortunately, guys, you might as well just burn your money, because that's about as good as it's going to get you, really, in your future career. So the AET is the first course that you should be looking through, and as I say, that's Ofqual backed. You can do these fully online now, and they take around 1 to 4 weeks to complete. Once you have that certificate, that is pretty much all you need to teach. There's a lot of people going, oh, you need settles and debtals and this and that, and you need this course. Guys, you don't. The only course that you need to teach adults, learners, is the AET, which was equivalent to Petals and a whole host of other things that it's been called over the years. They changed the name more than anything. So they have been 7307, it's been the 7302, it's been all kinds of different courses. So you may have an equivalent certificate. It might not be AET, but it will be an equivalent teaching certificate. And usually it's course around introduction to teaching or access to adult learning. The other qualification that you can get is a level 3 certificate in assessing vocational achievement. Now I want to explain this to you guys. If you have an assessor's certificate, you do not need an AET certificate or an introduction to training. Now, some people will be arguing here that, well, actually, yes, you need to go to university, you need to get this qualification, you need to make sure you work through all your teaching quals, but actually the awarding bodies themselves are not demanding that information. And actually, there's a big thing that you can either teach or you can't. And you probably know yourself, when you was at school, there was teachers there that couldn't teach, who had the degree, and there was teachers there that could, and they probably didn't have a degree, they were probably the classroom assistants. So in all fairness, having that piece of paper doesn't actually necessarily mean that you're ready and skilled to go and teach. What the AET though does is it teaches you about different learning styles and how to write up lesson plans and the basics that you need in order to plan a lesson and to get the most out of your students that you're going to need to get out of your students. Because ultimately we don't all learn the same. Some of you are probably bored listening to this. Most of you would want to be reading off a PowerPoint. Some of you guys would want to be actually seeing something physically done for you to actually learn and pick up from. So everybody has a different learning style, and we have to learn how to adapt to those within the classroom. And also then some people have additional needs. Some people might be hard of hearing, some people might have dyslexia. And it's about adapting your lessons and adapting your training in order to meet the requirements that student needs in order to pass. So you do really ideally need to get your Introduction to Teaching certificate, or your AET, your Access to Adult Education. But the assessing is one that you can just get, and that is enough for a lot of accreditation companies to use as a teaching qual, and also for the awarding bodies in order to teach, believe it or not. Now, If you're going to get assessing vocational achievement certificates or an assessor certificate, the one piece of advice that I am going to give you guys is please try not to do this online. There's a few reasons for this. There's no harm in doing it online, but if you are doing it online, make sure that you have work experience within a fully operational academy that is delivering the same kinds of courses that you want to work in, and try and get as much work experience as you can possibly get with regards to assessing. Now, if you want to move on to off-qual back qualifications, the assessor's course is really important, that you will need this in order to deliver the training. But there's a few things that we'll also need to be aware of. If you want to get into off-qual back training, you need to be qualified in the subject area that you want to teach. Now, a lot of people think that their CPD certificates or accredited certificates are qualifications. This will not allow you to teach an awarding body qualification. Let's say, for example, level 2 beauty. If you've done a day course in waxing, you might have years and years of experience, but you will not be able to teach the level 2 waxing course by VTCT or anyone else unless you actually have the level 2 certificate yourself. So level 2 doesn't mean CPD levels or accreditation. It actually means a certificate by an awarding body such as VTCT or City and Guilds. There's other ones over the years as well, like CIBTAC, IIHT and IHBC and so on. Those are the certificates that you need. If you do not have a level 3 in the subject area you want to teach, then you need to go and get that first and then move on to your assessing vocational achievement certificate. Now, you will need this in order to map the qualifications that you are delivering. If you've done a level 2, 3 or 4 course, you will know that you have to meet a certain set of criteria, and that has to be documented and recorded. And that's usually in a logbook, by assessments, by summative and formative assessments, and by assignments and exams and so on. So there's various ways that an awarding body qualification is assessed. It's not just by visual, it's not just by orally asking questions and answers. But you need to understand how to map those qualifications, how to make sure that your student is reaching those qualifications, and also how to record the data if something has to be done a little bit differently. For example, if you have a dyslexic student, they may not be very good with exams. So it might be that you have to deliver the exam orally to the student, who may then pass with flying colours. So the assessors is really good at being able to get you to understand how to record that data and how to obviously pass somebody through on an awarding body qualification. If you do this online, guys, that's great, do it online. But the problem that's going to lie is most of you will not work for an academy that is independent. You'll work for yourself, okay? So when you're working for yourself, you don't have an upline, you don't have anybody to teach you and show you what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong. And although a lot of these awarding bodies have external verifiers that come in and they start to help you guys, the help is actually very, very limited. I was registered with VTCT myself, and I can tell you that they were the absolute worst company that I could ever have been with, in the fact that the EQA was just horrendous. She didn't help me do anything. She sat on her backside and just snubbed me. And she was like, oh, well, you can't do this and you can't do that, and you're feeding this information and you're doing this. Okay, well, you tell me how I'm supposed to be doing that. I was paying VTCT a hell of a lot of money, okay? I needed the support, and that wasn't there. Luckily, I managed to team with another academy that actually held my hand through a lot of it and explained how to set up certain files that were required and how to assess my students and how to do reflective journals and so on. And unless you are shown physically how to do this, you will trip yourself up at the first hurdle. So please, please, please understand that whilst offering off-qual qualifications is where you really do want to be aiming your business and your career, you have to do it the right way. And if you cut corners here, this is going to affect your career moving forwards. Now, those of you that want to offer off-qual backed regulated qualifications, this is great, but you will need to also get an internal quality assurance of assessment processes and practice qualification. And the reason for this is that if you get an internal verifier, that sounds a little bit backwards and coming forwards, but for your courses to be passed, you need an internal quality assurer to come in and basically look over your assessments and say, yes, all your students have met the criteria and they're happy to pass them off. Then that goes to an external verifier who comes in and they go through a few samples of the folders and say yes or no to the quality that is within those files. So it's a series of processes to ensure that the quality of training and the standard of education is there. I know a lot of people will argue that actually I've had people come out of college who don't know the backside from their elbows, and this is very, very true. I'm not by any means standing here and saying that regulated qualifications are better than day courses. Both have the place. However, as we move into regulation, it's going to be something that will start to become pretty standard. If you have another trainer that you work with, this is brilliant, because if you're both assessors and both IQAs, you can then basically work together and you can IQA each other's assessments. Really easy. Okay, guys? Sounds harder than it is. But you need to make sure first that, again, you get experience. Don't just open up an academy that's off-qual regulated, or you have off-qual qualifications and expect it all to fall into your lap, because, guys, that isn't going to happen. Get your first year's experience teaching on your private sector first. Learn about all the problems that are going to arise, and by G's, you will get problems. You will get complaints. You will get people saying they don't understand something, people saying they never got taught something. And this is where you then start to put in the processes to ensure that that doesn't happen again and that complaint doesn't occur again. So really, that first year is basically your crawling stage. This is where you're learning to understand how you teach and why you teach and what problems people are going to come and face. Now, you imagine that in a setting where you have to assess the student and then you have to have that IQA'd and then EQA'd. There could be a lot of problems that are sort of brought up that you didn't realise, and that can obviously delay the whole process of the student being qualified in what they're trying to learn. It gives you a bad reputation as well, and it's also really, really stressful. So in terms of that, you need to understand what what you're doing and how you're doing it, and then make sure you're doing it right. And there's only one way we can do that, guys, is by going in and actually doing work experience at another college or doing work experience at an academy that will allow you to go in. Those of you that are trained, I don't know what you're all trained in who are listening to this, but if you are a hairdresser, imagine doing a hairdressing course just with words, okay, and just with assignments. That means you can't go and work on hair because you've never touched hair, you've never held hair, you've never felt hair. And the same goes for assessing qualifications. If you've never actually seen the process done, it actually becomes quite complicated, and obviously you don't understand the whole process that you have to have in place for that. And this includes having assessors files on site, having IQA files on site. You need to make sure all your health and safety files are up to date. You also need to make sure that you're having regular meetings with your IQA and EQA, and they need to be logged. If you don't know all the process, launching an off-qual backed regulated qualification academy is going to be a minefield. So guys, start small, then move in. I will do another video at some point on running an off-qual qualification academy, and hopefully that will answer a lot more questions, because I don't think a lot of you guys will be at that stage just yet. Those of you that are, I know hopefully in the next couple of weeks I'll get that video out, but I know people are now pushing for people to go down the off-qual regulated route, and this is amazing, and it's certainly somewhere where we all need to be pushing ourselves. I'm happy that I've got my level 2, 3 and 4 qualification in beauty therapy, because when level 5 comes out I can jump straight on, and level 6 comes out I can jump straight on, and so on. And it's given me the opportunities to travel the world. I can also work all over the world as well. So we do need to have these qualifications and regulations in place, and we do need to have these processes in place as well. So I don't knock private courses. I do them myself, I teach them myself, but we do eventually need to move into the off-qual sector. But until that point, you need to make sure that you've got all your processes in place, and you need to have the experience in order to deliver those courses, because the awarding bodies don't take no prisoners. So if you make mistakes, they will strike you off. So the other important thing is about academy setup, and this is quite an important part of your training academy on top of your qualifications. So let's just think about the experiences that you may have had. Can you think of places where you've been that the setup was really good, and places where you've been where you're thinking, oh my god, this is just like hell. I'm in a really scruffy environment, and the products I'm being taught with are off some dodgy website, or they're just Boots products and things like that shouldn't really be used in a professional setting. You've all had probably a really bad training experience, and you've probably all had a really good one as well. And it's about taking all the qualities of the training that you've had that are good and trying to put them all together. A lot of people think they have to have really swanky training premises. Guys, no, you don't. I'm pretty sure many of you have been to really swanky training premises and had really crap training. Some of you have probably been to some girl in a small room in a salon and had the best training ever and got all the information that you could possibly ever have wanted and walked out much more knowledgeable. So actually, premises aren't really vital. I don't have premises anymore. The premises I used to have used to cost me over £10,000 a month. That was just to open the doors before my staff. So the premises was really big. We had granite flooring, we had everything. The premises was beautiful. I now don't have any premises. I make more money now than I made with 14 staff. Okay? And I'm not talking about turnover, I'm talking about profit. And at the end of the day, if you are not a profitable business, then you're not even a business, okay? You're just there for charity. So you need to make sure that you have a profit. Now, if at the moment you're working from somebody's shop, if you're working from a small room, that isn't a problem. But there are a few things that you need to take into consideration about what that setting and what that environment really needs to be like. The first thing, it needs to be quiet. If it's a really noisy environment, if it's people laughing and chatting and clattering around, it's not conducive to learning. If it's too small to have 2 people in there or 3 people in there, then you need to basically assess where else you can train from. Are your premises clean? Have they got all the right health and safety set up there? Have you got your fire exits in place? Do you have enough toilets for your students to use? And then also look at things like, what parking facilities do you have? The last thing you really want is a student coming from 2 hours away and then having to spend half an hour trying to find somewhere to park and then walking on foot trying to find your premises. So really you need to think about all this. Now, as I say, I don't have premises. I actually just sublet other people's premises, and that costs me between £50 and £120 a day. Sometimes I pay 30% commission on what I earn from my teaching. So there's always ways about it. So if you don't currently have an academy yourself or a premises to work from, that isn't a problem. But it's how you deliver the training and it's the setup of everything that you have there that is really going to make you stand out. So you need to obviously understand things such as what products that you're going to use, what brand are you going to use when you teach. Using something that you've bought from Boots, or if you're using some kind of Chinese filler, that's not going to set you up for getting a good feedback. You really need to be making sure that you're using the quality products, and don't stay locked into a particular brand. The one thing I found a lot of students don't like is brand specific training. And that means that basically you're then robbing them of money every time you're teaching them a different technique, but with or the same technique but with a different product. So the one I can throw up here is Sunicos and Jula Pro. Profilo is a little bit different, so all given I can understand that being a separate course. But then you have fat loss mesotherapy, which there are 2 main products on the market that you can inject in, or 2 main ingredients that all the products that are on the market contain, and yet people specifically brand their course with one particular brand, and that then basically limits the student from using other products that they may want to go, and then they have to spend more money out there training. So don't limit yourself to particular brands, try and stay quite neutral, but at the point is always use good quality products. Students know when they come whether you're using crap or not, and if you're using crap, that's then going to get them, if they've never heard of anything before, to use really bad products. And also, in terms of aesthetic training, try not to cut corners with your prescribers and buying dodgy Botox on the black market and things like that. Obviously, we need to be doing everything, doing it properly. And as a trainer, you need to be showing the correct setup. You need to be making sure that the students are following all the PPE, following all the health and safety, understand their anatomy and physiology, or getting the products from the best place. There's a lot more things that you need to consider, and this is in my ebook, which you're more than welcome to download. I'll put the link in the comments. That's got a lot more information in there than what I'm going to be able to get into a video today, but I just wanted to explain a little bit about what your student expects. And they really expect a clean environment, they expect a warm environment. You might not necessarily need to have PowerPoint slides. I've gone from I used to give PowerPoints, I used to have PowerPoints on TV screens, and I used to give manuals out, and I used to go through the manual with the students, albeit I never read word for word, but I used to go through. And eventually it just got boring. I got fed up of teaching, and I was teaching the same crap day in, day out, reading the same theory. And then one day I just thought, sod this, I'm not doing this like this anymore. And actually now the way I teach is the way I'm teaching you guys now. It's not word for word, it's not from a manual. I do everything from my head. And that is usually the best way to teach, because actually what you're really doing is just having a conversation with somebody rather than teaching. When people are being taught at, when they're being fed endless amounts of information, they just like, oh God, this is boring, and they start to switch off, start picking up their phones. So having a more interactive learning environment can sometimes be a little bit better. That's saying, not saying get rid of your PowerPoints and don't have your manuals there. Do have all that, but just make it a little bit more interactive with the students, and have a little bit more off-topic conversations, and get everybody involved and get everybody to talk with you rather than you talking at the student all the time. As I say, it doesn't have to be that you have to have a facility yourself. I can sometimes visit students in their own salons and things like that. So again, that's not going to stop you from moving forward. One thing that I would always say is make sure your health and safety is absolutely up to date, and you risk assess every place that you go. If you go and teach somebody at their home and they've got dogs running around, okay, we all love dogs, but leave the dog cuddling until maybe the end of the course, and spend the day doing the course in the right environment with the dogs out of the room. And then at the end of the day, you can have all the puppy cuddles that you really, really need. But you just have to make sure that you're risk assessing everything, and also making sure that you take everything that you need in order to deliver the training. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've had to taxi equipment, really important equipment, to the place that I've been training at because I've completely forgotten that I need it. So always make sure that you've got the wires to the machines, you've got the machines themselves, you've got all the products. And I do that now the night before, write myself a little list, and even then I still manage to forget things. And those that have been trained by me have probably experienced that as well, where I've gone, oh, I forgot that to bring that. So it does happen, but at the end of the day you're only human. But do try and make sure that you've got everything that you need to deliver that training course, because otherwise it could be a wasted journey for your student. So obviously make sure you check as well that everything you're doing is going to be safe. If you're working with needles, you really need to make sure that your sharps boxes are close by, that the student is confident working with needles. And if they're not, you need to make sure that you're watching them a lot more closely, and obviously keeping your distance so that you don't end up becoming stabbed by a used needle. You also need to know about fire safety. This is whether it's on your premises or somebody else's. I'm a fire marshal, so I actually know obviously how to get people out of buildings when they're on fire and things like that, and I can tackle fires. But in all fairness, the basics that you actually need is just to know how to get the hell out of the building, okay? And you can do that at the beginning of the course, or just make sure that you've got enough signs written around the building that you're working from to actually be able to get people out quickly and safely. Obviously, if you're working on each other, then you may need to patch test or for allergies. But if you're also working on clients, or models, you may need to get them in beforehand as well. So if you're working from someone else's premises, you need to be able to send them something up to patch test models before the day. Make sure all your cosh is right as well. Make sure all your products are labelled correctly. Also, you need to make sure that you've got accessibility to the building. Especially if somebody is disabled. I've had lots of disabled students over the years that have a whole host of different requirements, and obviously you need to make sure that people can get to you, and if you can't get to, or they can't get to you, you can go to them. You need to know, do you want a dress code? I'm quite a casual trainer, so I don't really have a dress code. Some might say that's actually not conducive, and actually, I used to love the days when we were all in, and I do laugh about it, but when we was all in white uniforms, white tights and white navy shoes, hair had to be up in a bun, short nails, no jewellery, things like that. This is professionalism. But what I like to think is that when people come to me for a training course, that actually their professionalism is already there, because I only teach level 3 beauty therapists and above. So they know what they need to do in their day-to-day life, and it's really not for me to tell a 40-year-old woman how to dress when they attend a course. I always just say to dress appropriately, dress comfortably. At the end of the day, I'd rather them be comfortable and learn than be straddled up in a beauty uniform, sweating and uncomfortable and, not really taking in what they need to do and can't wait to get home to get the bra off. So really, I want them to be as comfortable as possible on my course. And I know my ladies who are coming to me, or even the men that are coming to me for training, that they're going away and they're professional in their day-to-day business. But if I was teaching someone younger who was 18, 19, 20, I would probably be more prepared to have those strict uniform requirements in place, because then it gives them an idea of what is expected of them in industry. So obviously we need to really show people what is expected of them, but those that are already trained should hopefully already know. Obviously, I'll always say wear non-slip shoes, because obviously we don't want them slipping and sliding, and really we don't want flip-flops. Okay, flip-flops are dangerous. Course material is really important as well. Where you're going to get this, where you're going to make this. Some people have a scheme of work, but schemes of work really are more for when a course is held over several days or weeks or months. And this gives you an idea of how you're going to deliver the course, when you need assignments back in by, and when you're going to do assessments and things like that. You do need to have a lesson plan. Lesson plans can be really basic, and I'm going to do all the courses that are going to be separated from this, that go into a bit more detail. And I'll go into more detail about your course material. But I don't want to make this video too long, guys, otherwise I'm going to lose you. And I really want to just answer some of the most important questions that I'm getting asked through this quick video. So you need to have your lesson plans in place. Don't overthink this. Every day I get questions of, what can I do about a lesson plan? How am I going to be able to submit, a really good lesson plan? It's going to take me forever to do them. It doesn't need to be over complicated. Really, all it needs is to have the breakdown of how you're going to deliver the course, how you're going to assess the students, at what point you're going to deliver the theory, how you're going to deliver the theory, how you're going to assess, how you're going to monitor, when are you going to do questions and answers, and so on. Keep it simple. You're obviously then going to need course manuals. I heard a certain trainer the other day say course manuals aren't important because the content of your course should be there. Damn right, the content of the course should be there. That should be you as the trainer. But your course material, the thing that student takes away, is actually everything they need to support them through their journey. This is going to cover everything that they need about anatomy and physiology, the treatment overview, contraindications to the treatment, contraactions to the treatment, diseases and disorders, how the treatment works. I love my manuals. I have always kept my manuals, and regardless of whether they go in a drawer or not, I still refer back to them when I need to. So manuals are really an integral part of the training, and if you're going to produce crap course manuals, then really that's not giving the full course it's what the course deserves. Really, a 3-4 page manual is really not enough. You need to make sure that your manuals have the content, and obviously I will go into this in more detail on another video. So a manual, what should it cover? It should cover general health and safety, treatment specific health and safety, sterilisation and disinfection, anatomy and physiology, treatment overview, contraindications, contractions, diseases and disorders, treatment protocols, treatment science background or variables, client consultation and aftercare. Guys, don't worry about remembering all of this. You can download all this. It is written in my ebook. So you need to make sure that you have all that in detail into the training manual. Now, there's a lot of information and a lot of people going, oh, should I buy manuals off myself? Do I sell manuals, or should I write my own? If you can write your own, do. Okay? Ultimately, buying manuals off the shelf is really there to get people going and to get people started. Most people will edit my manuals. So they'll buy manuals and they edit them with their own logo. They add in different things that suit their own business. And they use them as a base, as a foundation in order to create their own and to create their own quicker. But then I have got other people that just use them as they are, and that's okay too. So whatever way you want to go about it, you just need to make sure that your manual has enough content that student can take away to refer back to. And people that go, oh, people don't read back over manuals. I've never ran a course ever in my life where a student has gone, well, I'm not going to read that manual again. They've always gone, can I take this manual away with me to refer back to, or I'm going to read this again when I get home. I'm going to go back through the manual later. So I've always got people that when they're back on the train, they'll read back through it, or when they're back at home, they'll read back through it, or before they go and do another treatment, they read back through it. So manuals are really, really important. Another thing you might want to consider is doing a student induction, and again I'm going to cover this in another video because this is something that a lot of people get filled with dread. All these icebreakers that, my name is and I'm from here and I do this, and everybody hates it. Okay, I don't think there's going to be one person that sits there going, I love a good icebreaker, unless you love talking about yourself. There are a few of those people, but most people hate icebreakers, and I don't do that. What I basically do is I casually sit with my students when they're all there, and I just sort of say, where have you come from, what's your background, and things like that. So just to get a bit of information, to get them thinking, oh, this is just a regular conversation. It breaks the ice through normal day-to-day talking without them feeling like they've got to stand up and introduce themselves, or that they're on the spot and they've got to introduce themselves. Because don't forget, you're going to have people on your course that aren't confident or don't have as much experience as some of the other students that are there that could have years of experience, and that can be intimidating for a student. It also allows the student then to open up and go, I've never done needlework before, or I've never done this before, or this is new to me, or I'm a bit apprehensive. So it actually helps you to calm that student down and just relax them and say, look guys, we're all in the same boat here, but don't worry, by the end of this course we're going to make sure that you leave here confident, and if you don't, we've got you, okay? You might want to look at how you're going to assess your students, and things like case studies are a really good option, and again I'll do more in depth on this at a later date, and also maybe end of course quizzes and tests and things like that. The more ways you assess the client or the student is great, but ultimately what you want is that that student to be confident when they walk out your door. We can test people's knowledge. I'm a big believer that tests don't always show knowledge, because most people can remember something and retain information for a few hours, but 2 weeks later they're more than likely have forgotten it anyway. So the idea really is just to keep drumming that information into somebody throughout the whole course of the day, and if needs be, just go, what's the aftercare? What contraindications wouldn't you treat with this, and things like that. So you're just casually asking them throughout the day without the student even knowing that they're being tested. I find that far more conducive. However, when you're moving into can't even speak, it's really late at night. When you move into awarding body qualifications, then they do really have a lot of emphasis on tests and quizzes and things like that. So you will need to get into that sort of frame of mind of how you're going to sort of run those. So starting it now might be a good way to set you up for marking and things like that later. Some people do case studies, and that's okay too. But also the most important thing really is about post-training support. What you're offering in salon or in the academy is the foundation skills that person is going to need to go out and be able to do the treatment, but they're by no means trained. They're still going to have loads of questions that they're going to have to come to you and ask, and for that you really need to make sure that if you want to teach, that you want to actually give the support after training. It's all too common now that in groups we're getting people asked the most stupid questions that they really should have learned during training. This is going to be for several reasons. The first is that they were never taught this in their class. The second is that the trainer just didn't have the knowledge to pass on to them in the first place. The third, the student just wasn't listening. I mean, come on guys, how many of you have actually sat there and paid attention to everything that you were told in a training course? Sometimes you forget and you go away and you have to actually get somebody else to sort of remind you, or you have to go back through your course material. Or four, they've asked the trainer, and the student's gone to the trainer and said, I don't understand this, and they've been blanked because the trainer doesn't know themselves. So there's a lot of questions being asked in groups about what aftercare should be given for certain things and how to use certain things, and also one that commonly comes up, what product should I use? And really, by all means, these shouldn't be questions students are asking on forums, not public forums anyway. If you're not there to support the student, if that student is in a group asking these daft questions, which they will do, okay, it's human nature, but if they ask these questions in a group, the one person is always going to pop up going, who did you even train with if you don't know the basics? If they then inbox them or mention your name, that's going to discredit your reputation in the industry, and it isn't a great start. So what I really would suggest that you do is make sure you tell your students that if they have any questions that they need to contact you. 24-hour support is great, but at the end of the day, we kind of need to sleep as well. I used to have a group that was ran 24/7, and it just caused too much bickering and bitching and all that kind of thing. So I actually don't do that anymore. But my students can come to me by text or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. I'm not going to say, guys, that I'm the quickest person to get back to people because I've got such a busy and hectic life. But I always explain to my students that it might take me a day or two to come back to them, but I will come back to them. I also explain that if I see that it's an urgent message, I do my best to prioritise my students over anything else. So my past students will be my first priority over new students booking on courses and any sales, okay? Because I have a duty of care to support them moving forward. And yes, I have had students going on forums and ask, is there any other kind of product they can use, things like that, because students are inquisitive, they want to learn and they want to have knowledge. But ultimately, you don't want them asking the most basic questions that you've covered in your training, okay? And if you haven't covered it in your training, really, why not? Give the student loads of videos or blogs to follow as well after they've done their training. And if you have got a group, this is a great time to put all that information into the group to keep further supporting their learning. You can also recommend to them any favourite books and things like that you may also have. You need to make sure you've got policies and procedures in place. This is a really important part of running an academy. If you don't have your policies and procedures in place, you might as well just close your doors now, and these things will be a lifeline for you guys. Policies and procedures are a whole list of different, obviously, procedures and how you're going to do certain things within your business. And that can be sort of basics such as equality and diversity. It can be how you're going to allow somebody to come back and say, actually, I'm not very happy with how you assess me and you need to reassess me. Or, what chances are you going to give people to come back and say, I want to be reassessed? You might have in there a bullying or harassment policy, and this is basically going to protect other students from being bullied by somebody else on the course, and also stop you from being bullying, because students can have a habit of also bullying the trainer as well. So in that instance, you don't want to be bullied, so make sure that bullying is stamped out at the beginning. I do not tolerate bullying in any way. If somebody comes to me and gives me a whole heap of crap for what I see as no reason, they will get back from me as much as I give, or as much as they give me. At the end of the day, everybody has busy lives and everybody has things going on. So actually, yes, we can get irate, but having a mutual understanding is far better than getting irate, because usually it doesn't really get you anywhere at the end of the day. Feedback forms are great as well. The one thing that I have always sort of pushed on is having a feedback form, because feedback forms basically mean that if the student's got a problem, they should be raising it there. And if they leave the course and 3 weeks later they suddenly decide they want a refund, they've already given the feedback that the training was great. However, I also then allow my students 24 hours to come back to me, because sometimes, on a feedback form, you're not always going to be honest in the class. But ultimately what it's going to then do is, I'll say in 48 hours or 24 hours, you need to contact me by email if you've got any problems or worries or concerns that I can then direct you to. This doesn't then mean that after 48 hours you cannot help them anymore with student post-training support. But it does mean that it's given them that opportunity to raise complaints. And guys, complaints are amazing. Without complaints, you can't grow. So although sometimes it absolutely kicks you in the absolute gonads when you get one, you learn from this. Because actually, sometimes it's something that you've done wrong, not just your student. I could go through lots of examples of that, but then I think if I go through some examples, people who are watching this might go, that was one of my examples. But things might be that the student wasn't suitable to be on the course in the first place. That was your fault for not checking their prerequisites before they attended the course. It might be that their language skills aren't good enough to attend a course. How are you going to overcome those situations in the future? It might also be that, trying to think off the top of my head without calling out on past students and things like that, but there's a whole load of things that may come up throughout your teaching career, and you then have to adapt the way you do things in the future. I'll give you an example. We used to send pre-reading material out to our students before they attended the course. And on the same email would be where to find us, how to get to us, and everything else. And on the days of the courses, there'd be maybe 1 out of 4 students who've actually read the prerequisites or read the pre-reading material. The other 3 hadn't. So that then actually meant we ended up having to spend a hell of a lot of time retraining the theory because nobody had actually learned it at home. So that's an example. But then you have to work out, well, how do you actually then fix this? What do you actually do? So then you have to then say to people, if you don't read this material, we can't accept you onto the course. Then you follow them up with a phone call a week before the course to make sure that they've actually done that. You can then obviously do a test to make sure that they've obviously read the material. Or now we've got this whole bonus of online training. You can actually put your theory online and you can see if a student has done it or not, because it shows you the progress. So actually, when I said before, online training can actually be an absolute pro to your business. We didn't have this back in the day when I was teaching, where we were sending out prerequisite material. So now I would change it to actually have online training. But everything that you do, usually the problem lies with you, and you can fix it and stop it from happening again in the future. So for that, there's a whole list of paperwork there that will stop these problems from occurring. And if you do get any problems with training, drop me a message. I will tell you how to stamp out that behaviour straight away and get you on the straight path and have no more problems with future students. So there's always that awkward moment in life when you realise that something was going to be short and probably isn't going to be. So I want to just quickly touch on accreditation versus qualification. I have done a blog about this recently, and you're more than welcome to go and have a read of that. Again, there's so much to cover with teaching that it isn't just something that can really fit into one quick course. And for that, like I say, I'm going to do lots of little bits of courses for you so that you can go away and just pick up little sections that you might need. And I'm going to pop all this onto YouTube. So there are 2 different ways of getting your courses ready for students, that is accreditation or through a regulated qualification. I go into a lot more detail about this on my blog, and I think it'll probably end up being another video as well because it's easier for you guys to watch. Accreditation, there is a lot of ooh and ahhing about whether we should really be accredited or not, and what accreditation really is. And for the best part of it, I do believe for a lot of companies it is a money-making opportunity. But there are some very good accreditation companies that are out there that are striving to improve the industry, and those are like Professional Beauty, Centre of CPD Excellence, ABT Insurance. Although I'm not their biggest fan, they are setting standards high, and then we've obviously got Babtac and CPD UK and so on. The ones that I feel really let the side down, I've not included in my ebook. So those are the ones that I would personally avoid. I'm not here to name and shame anybody, but I would just sort of say, if you are looking to do any accreditation, to just sort of concentrate on those main companies. Every provider has something different. You can look down the regulated qualifications route, which is things such as VTCT, City and Guilds, CIBTAC, TQ UK, Highfield, those kind of courses. But as I say, they are usually quite helpful getting you set up, but helping you to run the academy, they're usually not very great with that. If you're looking to run things like masterclasses, online training workshops and things like that, you might not actually need accreditation, but you can sort of consider the main ones. Habia is another one that do accreditation, but they seem to be just really expensive and out of people's reach as well, which is quite unfair, I think, for a governing body. Really look at where you want to be placing your business in terms of delivering either certified courses, certified CPD courses, or whether you want to go through the Ofqual-backed regulated qualifications such as an MVQ. And as I say, I'd always start off with the day courses first, or the sort of in-house private training first, to get a handle on whether teaching really is for you. To move into Ofqual-backed, and I'm going to do a full course on this as well, you need the minimum of about £1,000 to get set up. and then you have to pay per learner, and then you have to pay EQA visits and IQA visits if you've not got an in-house IQA. So actually it becomes quite expensive, and it's a very expensive way to run courses. So as I say, you have the choice of accreditation. What is accreditation really? As I say, for a lot of people it is a money making scam, and I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up its ass when it's not something that I should really be blowing smoke up. It is supposed to be there to look at somebody's qualification and say, or course, and say, is this worth the paper that it's written on? Does it meet the minimum set of standards? And that's usually, is it going to cover aftercare and contraindications and so on? And actually, can a company that doesn't deliver beauty qualifications themselves or have any knowledge of the beauty industry really give a handle on whether that course is up to scratch? So this is where I'd be more prone to going towards people like Professional Beauty, ABT, or Centre of CPD Excellence, because they are only specifically there for the beauty and hair industry. If you're going to go outside of that field and you're going to go to a major CPD company, it's all very well that they give you the seal of approval, but actually, how do they know that that course is meeting the minimum standards that it should be? I've got a full list of accreditors, pros and cons in my ebook, but as I say, I'm not going to go into too much detail with it here. Is the accreditation process difficult? It's a daunting experience for a lot of people to go through. I would start here again before you go through and get things a little bit more complicated with your qualification route. If you start to do your accreditation, you need to make sure that you have a manual that is written to meet their minimum standards of what they expect to be within a manual, which is what we discussed earlier. That's also in my ebook. And you'll also need to submit a lesson plan, your certificates of the courses that you're qualified to teach. You'll need your teaching certificate as well. You submit those all off, and very often you pay a fee, and that fee can be anything from £150 a year right up to £3,000-4,000 a year. It really depends on the provider that you go with. Some of them are very, very expensive, some of them are middle of the road, and some of them are very, very cheap. But also you need to look at what you're going to be delivering. If you're delivering certain courses, certain accreditation companies won't touch you. For example, Professional Beauty and ABT, there's things sometimes such as dermaplaning, they on and off will accredit, and I think ultrasound cavitation ABT don't cover, and then obviously injectables as well, such as Botox and fillers and things like that, those companies won't cover those treatments. So you need to make sure the accreditation company you choose is suitable for your requirements. Once you've submitted everything, they may come back with changes that they expect you to do. This is perfectly normal. And actually, even though I might have one manual passed 10 times, the 11th time it may come back with one edit that needs to be done within the manual. It is a bit nitpicky, and that's obviously, these companies do need to keep making sure that standards are being raised, and actually quite rightly so, because if we all sit comfortably expecting things just to keep getting passed and not to be improved upon, then industry standards aren't going to be improved. So don't be surprised if you do get a couple of amendments or a couple of changes to your own written manuals or to somebody else's. That is going to occur, that is going to happen, and then obviously all you need to do is make the changes. No accreditation company is going to out and out refuse to accredit you. They will ultimately take your money, and then they will assess you from there. You just need to make sure you have the base qualifications first, otherwise then that's probably the only thing that they will ask you to go and get, but they'll ask you to get them before they would single you out and not accredit you. With some accreditation companies, they have feedback systems in place, they have checks in place, they have sort of, I'm trying to think of the word, they have sort of areas where students can come and complain about academies, and those are the sort of companies really that good training providers should be supporting. So if you're with Babtac, for example, and somebody reports the academy to Babtac will then really be taking a stance of saying, well, we don't want these trainers on board until they've addressed these issues within their academy. Now, obviously, you're all going to get complaints at some point, so don't let that phase you, that a complaint, as I said to you before, complaints aren't bad things. Complaints are absolutely brilliant. If somebody can come to you to complain, it allows you to actually get better at what you do and to grow. If people don't complain, then you're never going to know how to grow and improve, and people will just walk away. So actually, people that take the time out to complain, although they're absolutely pains in the bum sometimes, but actually what they're doing is they're making your business better. So actually, really, we need to be grateful for those people that come forward and take the time to give us their concerns. Now, they may go to accreditation companies if they feel that they've got nowhere with you, but a lot of the time, accreditation companies just knock it on the head. They never usually take complaints seriously. I've known the orange and yellow CPD company to have hundreds of complaints over one or two providers, and they're still on their site. They're still accrediting them. So some companies don't care, and others will actually need substantial proof that the standards of training wasn't up to scratch, and they'll need more than one complaint. As I say, we're all going to get, I've had probably 20-30 complaints over my sort of 20-year career of teaching, not just about my training, obviously in my training academy. So you do get them, and that can be from a whole host of things, from people not getting certain paperwork on time, to people not feeling confident in a procedure, or somebody feeling like they've not received their certificate on time. So complaints can vary from little tiny things to great big things like, the whole world has caved in on them and things like that, which, sometimes when people feel they've been hard done by, the complaint stretches quite far and wide, doesn't it? And they include everything that could have possibly gone wrong. So obviously, accreditation companies, insurance companies and things like that, they know you're going to get complaints, because at the end of the day, we're only human. But having that accreditation in place, is it really important? It shows that you've gone through due diligence, that you've actually looked to make sure that you are meeting some certain set of criteria. And actually, 95% of students will ask you, are you accredited? Regardless of the fact that they can probably still get insurance without it, they still do ask. Is accreditation going to become more commonplace or less commonplace? I don't know. I think we're going to start finding that things get tighter with the insurance companies, so they may start requesting some form of stricter accreditation regulations, but at the moment everything is hearsay. Awarding bodies, as I said, is something that you need to first of all understand how to set these up, and you need to make sure you have the correct qualifications. Correct qualifications being that you need to have your assessor's qualification, and or if possible a IQA qualification as well. Well, not all, you ideally need them both. The IQA then allows you to assess other people's work. So if you've got other assessors on site, you can basically allow them to assess, and you can IQA them. And also you can IQA swap. So if you've got certain courses that you do and someone else, then it saves you money, because you can basically both IQA each other's courses. So it's really nice to do that. So if you can get that, it will help save you money. Fees to set up a awarding body can vary, as I said, from a few hundred to around £1,000, depends on who you're going to go with. And then obviously you pay a per learner fee, and then you have costs that you need to take into consideration in regards to external verify visits, and also a minimum spend per year as well. So that is the accreditation and awarding body setup that you can go down. If you want to know more about accreditation, then have a look around, speak to the accreditation companies and see what they can actually do for you. I really highly recommend, as I say, Professional Beauty. Babtac is actually also quite okay as well, but they don't do things like injectables. ABT, I don't find their customer service is very good, so for me personally, I'm not a big fan of theirs, but I know a lot of people go down ABT route. And then the only other one is Central CPD Excellence that I also approve. The problem with things like Professional Beauty, Babtac and ABT is that if you're accredited with just one of those companies, your students are usually locked into getting insurance with them companies, whereas if you go with someone like Central CPD Excellence or CPD UK or Habia, you've got a little bit more choice of insurers for your students to go with. They can actually go with all the main providers. So I hope that explains a little bit more about accreditation and regulation and regulated qualifications. If you've got any more questions on that, let me know, and if needs be, I will try and expand out more on some more videos, because I think really we could be here forever. So I'm sorry if you guys think I'm talking really fast. Just there's a lot of information to get into. Very small teeny weeny video, which was now probably coming into an hour. One of the other things that I get asked so many times is like, how do you get students? How do you start? And this really is a never-ending story, because marketing is always ongoing, and the same with the salon. You already know that it's got to be constantly plugging your business. But the beauty about teaching is actually you need less people ultimately, and they pay you more money, which is nice. So when we're looking to get students, there are places that you can go and find these. Now, I want you to not worry so much about writing everything down and remembering everything and thinking this isn't a great PowerPoint, because there's not all the information on there. All the details are listed here to get your ebook, which has every single thing that I've discussed today written down. Make it a little bit easier for you. You could take that and just read it. Getting students, first thing you need to do really is compile a list, and start building a mailing list of local salons that you can email with your courses. Always start local, because there's going to be people like you that need training. So I would first of all contact all your local salons and introduce yourself. Just be careful about GDPR. If you're emailing a business email, they're actually exempt from GDPR and marketing regulations, so you can contact them direct. But if they have got a personal email on there, then you could be breaking GDPR law by contacting them with your marketing. So also make sure they've got an opt-in there for them to be able to unsubscribe if they're not interested in your services. But contact all your local salons and ask them if they want you to go in and do a half-day day's training with their staff for a day rate. And the reason that I do a day rate is that this allows you to build up some experience, it allows you to build up reputation, and then obviously when you start to get students holding certificates and photographs of you teaching, and you start posting those, it then realizes that people realize then that you've actually got some experience in teaching, and then they'll start to come through to you, and then people will start to book on other courses that you've already trained, and then it just grows and snowballs from there. Let your existing clients know. So many people ask me, should I have 2 different websites? Should I have 2 different social medias? Yes, that's great. By all means, keep your businesses separate, especially for tax purposes if you can. But in terms of advertising, lock into your existing clients. Let your existing clients know that you're teaching, because you never know. They may be some that are in the same industry as you, which is really a high possibility. And also, they might have daughters and sisters or somebody else who's a beauty therapist in the family that they can obviously recommend you to. Use social media, post everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, wherever you are. Social media is a great tool. But one of the things that I want you to sort of understand is that when you're advertising on Facebook and places like Instagram, is don't sell to clients. Clients are sick of seeing sales posts. I do this, I do this, I do this. Start being informative by giving information away for free. People buy into you because actually, hang on a minute, I don't need to sit here and give my time away to tell you how to set up an academy, but here we are. And there's so many amazing people out there that are business coaches that give information away for free, and obviously yes, eventually it leads to hopefully somebody buying into our brand and buying into our products. But we're also out there helping people because of the love of what we do for our industry, so not everything is money focused, and that's what you should do with your social media, especially if you want to be a trainer. So when you're on posts like forums and things, and someone goes, I'm struggling with eyelashes, I'm struggling with my dermal filler lasting, or something like this, start to be the voice of reason. If you start to give really good feedback and really good comments, then people will start going, do you teach? Do you teach? Can I come do some like one-to-one with you? And it starts to work that way, and people start to get a name for yourself. Think at the moment, some of the big names in the industry. Who do you know that are self-confessed big names in the industry? Okay. I could sit and say I'm probably one of them because I'm a bit of a mouthy sod on some of the forums. Not in always a bad way. Sometimes I try not to be in a bad way. But you'll see my name pop up, okay? And you'll see a lot of other people's names pop up. And those are the people that are usually at the forefront of other people's minds. So when people think manuals and people think training or people think certain training courses, then my name pops up. If people think about distribution and building up their own companies and selling online and things, my name will pop up on there. And because those are the areas that I know and I'm confident in, and I give a lot of feedback for. And nothing is there to get financial gain from. A lot of the time I'll just be like, hey, I know about this, I can help you, just PM me, and I'll have a conversation with somebody or get them to phone me and I'll speak to them about where they need to take their business. Blog as well. Blogging is brilliant because if you're giving away free information on blogs, it brings people and traffic to your website as well. And doing free information as well, free mini courses, as I say, it builds up people's skills and it also gets you their details and hopefully gets them coming back to do more training with you. Get reviews. You know, we live in a society where people rely on reviews and feedback, and if you can get honest reviews of your students, then that is great because that is going to allow people to buy into you more. Have a good website. I have seen so many crap websites that I cannot begin to comprehend. Like, I'm not saying every website is perfect, but you need to make it easy to find things, to see when your next courses are, to see the least amount of contact that person has to make with you is better because they should be able to find all that information online and book. And to be fair, I don't talk to most people that book on my courses. Most of them do it direct through my website. It's not until I meet them on the day of the course that I actually then get to see who they are. Make sure that you do some paid for advertising as well because that really does boost it up, whether that's in social media forums or for things like Google. And also join forces with other academies. There's so many academies around the UK that all do different things, and not just the UK. Let's not stop at the UK. The entire world that are looking for skills that you have and want you to come in and do some training for them. And if you allow them to use your premises and vice versa, this is going to build you up a client base really or student base, should I say, really quickly. Don't worry so much about if you've not got an academy. I go into other people's academies and they find students for me on my behalf, and it's so easy. I just literally turn up, rock up, and I teach and deliver the course, and just the academy themselves find the students for me. So there are other ways of you actually building up a database of people and building up and booking out all your courses. Those are just a few. You know, I'm sure you've got other marketing ideas that you use currently in your business, so put those together and eventually you'll start getting those clients coming back. Clients, I keep calling them clients, students. One of the things I will say to you though is very much like your beauty business. You didn't open with a whole booking full of clients, okay? The doors weren't open with a column after column full of clients. It took you a while to build them up, and what happens with those clients? They come back. And then you get a new one and that client comes back, you get a few new clients and they keep coming back and your regulars keep coming back, and eventually before you know it, you've got a full column. And this is exactly the same for teaching, guys. If you teach well, your student is going to want to stay with you for every course that you do. So every new course that you launch, that student's going to book right on because they love how you teach. So if you're a good trainer, you don't need to worry so much about the marketing because those students that you've already taught will keep coming back to you time and time again. So just remember, it's very similar to your beauty business. Once you've got a database of students, those are the people that will ultimately keep you busy. And the end is really near, so let's get through this as quickly as possible because I think we've gone on far too long and I've probably bored the senses out of you right now. Other things you need to think about when running an academy is things like your admin. It's things like who's going to answer your phone calls, who's going to do your bookings, how are you going to deal with them? Are you going to take them over the web, or are you going to take them over the phone, or are you going to take them over social media? You might want to do booking forms and student forms, so you need to make sure that you'll be able to chase those and also work out about sending patch test kits out as well. Teaching, you need to be organised. I'm actually probably one of the most unorganised people in the world, but I do have to organise my training courses. So that basically means that I have to, the night before, make sure that my kit is there, that I'm ready to set up, and also that I have the training materials printed and the certificates ready. I actually email certificates now to students because I find it works nicer for them in that they're not walking through a car park with a certificate flapping about in the rain, or it gets creased and crimpled. They can go home and print it off, and also they've got a digital copy that if they ever lose it, or they'll lose a hard copy, they've got a digital copy there as well. And most people these days want more than one certificate because they want a copy in their salon, they want a copy at home. So yeah, it's great. You think how many certificates you guys have got that you could potentially lose if you don't have a backup copy. It's quite scary. Your certificates are hard work. So you need to understand, about sort of chasing invoices and different things, and different processes that are there as well. I personally use 17 Hats. I love it. It's one of the best CMR systems or customer relations management software that I've ever used. The details of that is in the ebook. That allows me to stay a little bit more organised. I say a little bit, okay, but that's just because I'm the most unorganised person you'll ever meet. And make sure that you obviously got enough information on your course. You need to obviously be the marketer. So obviously we discussed marketing before, so I'm not going to go into it too much detail, but obviously look at where you're going to get interest from students to book onto your courses, and then obviously how you're going to take the money as well, and the payments. You do that through PayPal, bank transfer. A lot of students wary of bank transfers, so obviously we have a credit card payment system and things like that students can always get money back if they need to as well. So you need to find a good place to take payments. You also need to have a way that students can complain. Ultimately they're gonna have a fault with you at some point, and it doesn't matter how good you are, there's always that one person that just falls short, and it could be through no fault of your own, or it could be through every fault of your own. But just allow them basically to mouth off, let them sort of explain their complaint to you, and take that forward and learn from it, and then put in systems in place that stop that from happening again. One thing you really need to be careful of is competitors, and sadly this is a really ugly industry, that competitors will always feel like they want to call out other trainers, and it has occurred not so long ago where a girl decided she was going to make a list of bad training academies, listed some of the really good trainers on there, and ended up with several lawsuits against her, and ultimately ended up with accreditation being cancelled from companies and things like that, and really did sort of put the nail in the coffin for her reputation. So there's ways of handling things. Everybody's had a bad experience with a trainer, and that doesn't mean that the trainer is not good. I've had bad experiences with some trainers, but I wouldn't call them out on public forums. And actually training is what you get and what you make of it. So if you go in there with really high expectations and you don't get them, then obviously maybe your expectations were too high. But also if you've got a preconceived idea that you're going to walk out there and be this absolutely top esthetician, or really top PMU expert, doing beautiful hair stroke eyebrows after a 2-day course, then your expectations are completely off whack, and people do unfortunately have those expectations. But you also find that some academies will also try to leave bad reviews and to send people in, and to basically give you a bad feedback and bad reputation and bad vibes, which we don't need. Just sage that crap out, guys, okay? It happens. So don't get too upset about complaints and things like that. Take them on board, learn from them, change your systems if you need to. And if you get an ugly competitor that is trying to be untoward towards you, eventually they get bored. I've been there myself. I've experienced it with one of the top sort of companies in the UK that was delivering training at the time for a certain treatment, and they were horrendous, all because we had taken a lot of their business away from them. And instead of upping their game and changing their sort of systems, they attacked us in every way that they could, and they just put us through years of hell. and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. So unfortunately, there are witches round cauldrons in this industry. It does happen. But you just have to learn to not allow it to affect you negatively. Put your positive knickers on, girls, and just move on. Okay, if you're a boy, put your positive pants on and just move on. Because at the end of the day, ultimately, there's always going to be somebody that loses out in this industry. They lose out not because you are here, they lose out because they become complacent, and complacency is the worst thing to be in. So the thing that I'm going to say to you guys now, before I sort of start to wind this video up and end this, is that you should always be striving to do better than your last course. So every course that you run, you will do one thing wrong, or you'll do one thing that didn't go well, or one thing that didn't go as planned. So every single course that you run it better than the last. And even if it was perfect, find something that will perfect it, because complacency ultimately will lead to your demise, because eventually people will look for new academies because the training standards have slipped, or the product standards have slipped, or the aftercare has slipped. So you need to make sure that you're always up in your game and you're staying on top of what you're trying to achieve, which is ultimately a good experience for your students. Okay, so I am going to end it a little bit here now. I'm going to do some singular videos over the week that will cover things in a lot more detail. This is just a quick, brief video. So quick, 90 minutes isn't quick, is it? But I will do more videos that are a bit more interactive, that you can see about writing manuals and what manuals should include and lesson plans should include, and so on. So obviously that allows you guys to go away and create your own material. You can buy pre-written material. I started doing this about 3 years ago because I was moving to India, and then I ultimately decided, I was moving to Dubai, and ultimately then decided I wanted to move to India. And then just in the process of moving everything over, I think everything that I own is in India, we got hit with COVID, so I should have been back there last March, and I'm still here. It was my intention to work in both countries all the time anyway, so I won't be quitting the UK. I've got quite a few other businesses and business ventures that I have my hand in that ultimately will be requiring me to be in the UK at some point, so I'm not giving up completely. But on the way of moving abroad, I was asked by somebody, what are you doing with all your training manuals? And I sort of went, what? They went, what are you doing with your training manuals? And I was like, well, probably not a lot, because I won't be using most of them. I haven't used most of them myself anyway for a while, because I teach specific things, and they actually asked to purchase them. And I sat there and went, why is there even a market for this? So tested the market. I put a post up on a group with, would people actually be really interested in this? Like, are you curious? And the post went absolutely crazy, and from there I realised that I had a business. Now it is my intention to start to really up my game as well on Salon Expert. I've got some other things coming up in the pipeline, and it's been kind of on the back burner because of COVID, unfortunately. And I've also got some new resources coming out for you guys soon. But in the meantime, what do I have? What do I offer? So I do sell pre-written manuals and lesson plans. I don't sell the lesson plans. They can be sent along with manuals if you require them. I have PowerPoints, and I also have pre-made academy packs as well. I say pre-made academy packs, you kind of have to do some of the work yourself. I just provide the resources. But those packs include accreditation if you want them to include accreditation. What's the bonus or benefit of having this all done for you? Is that obviously it allows you to be set up quicker. A lot of my customers, I find, are working mums, are running very busy businesses, and also I have clients that are dyslexic or have trouble working on computers, and they want to move into teaching, or they want to expand their teaching career, but unfortunately they're limited by time. So that's where I kind of come in, is that with the time limit, they can obviously download a manual, download a PowerPoint, and edit that if they need to, and then send that off for accreditation. And within a week, that course can be live. Whereas currently what we have to do if we want, and what I do on a regular basis, guys, for you, is write up the manual yourself, which can take anything up to a week, and you need to make sure that there's no copyright issues with that material. So actually you can't copy and paste. Everything has to be written from memory. It has to be written in your own words, and that isn't easy. Okay, those of you who've written manuals and have told me that you've never got past page 6 know already how damn difficult it is to write manuals. So in that sense, people do come to me and they do buy manuals, and they obviously like to have that ease to know that everything's there ready for them to go. And obviously, if you want accreditation as well, I do accreditation packages, working in conjunction with Centre of CPD Excellence. The manuals that I sell have been pre-approved by not pre-approved, they've been pre-approved by Centre of CPD Excellence, but they've also passed the accreditation process of all the major accreditation companies with no issues. Over the years, there has been other companies that have, all over the last 6 months, to be fair, other companies have set up selling manuals, but unfortunately, a lot of the manuals that have been purchased, they're either my manuals that they're selling, or they are selling their copies of manuals which haven't got the detail in to pass accreditation, and they have basically been blocked up at accreditation point, and it has left people out of pocket because they've then had to ultimately come back to me and ask for permission to use the manuals which they've bought illegally from someone else. So if you are buying any resources, please be careful. Please ensure that if you don't come through me, that the people that you are using are legitimate. You might know them on Facebook, you might know who they are and think that they are legit and safe to use, but not all people are who they say they are on a computer. So just be very, very wary that they have the rights to the manuals, and then the manuals are going to be guaranteed to pass accreditation, and make sure that you pay by a method in which you can get that money back. So whether it's PayPal, friends and family, and so on, because otherwise you're going to be left out of pocket when those manuals don't pass the accreditation process. So that's a little bit about what I do. I have all the policies and procedures packs, I have salon Bibles, I have full training packs, I have absolutely everything ready for you to go. All you need to do is just tell me what it is that you need. You can do that all through my website, which is salonexpert.co.uk. So I'm going to close this now. I don't want to keep whittering on too much, but I hope that explains things a little bit better for you. And like I say, somebody tried to do a video this week about setting up an academy, and actually left nearly 300-400 people in just dire straits. They didn't know what to do. They've basically been given so much misinformation, and my inbox has been absolutely chock with people going, why do I need my assessors, why do I need to have off-qual, and so on and so forth. I'm like I say, I will do more of this as well now to get you guys up and running and aware of what things are, because there's still quite a lot of people out there who don't understand what they need. But hopefully this will answer a lot of your questions now. If you do have any more questions though, please just drop me a message down below on the comments. Also, you can email me direct at salonexpertuk@gmail.com, or you can contact me via Facebook. I'm Kate Sharmond on Facebook. Please note though that when COVID isn't here, I spend a lot of time abroad, so my time zone may be a little bit out of sync than yours. So on that note, thank you so much for watching to the end. Hope this answered your questions, and I really hope that if you are thinking about embarking on a career in teaching, that this has helped answer all of those questions that you had. Anything else that I can help you with, please just let me know.